Welcome to Library Out Loud with your host, Jane Baker. Jane has 7 years working at the Spokane County Library District as a communication and development director. Library Out Loud is about any and all things that are happening at the Library District. Library Out Loud is brought to you in part by STCU and SCLD. Now, here's your host, Jane Baker.
And welcome to Library Out Loud. I'm Jane Baker with the Spokane County Library District. Joining me today are two of our librarians. We have Dana Menino and Corinne Wilson. Hello. Welcome. Thank you for coming in today.
Thank you.
All right. So we're talking about a new, well, it's not really a program, but a new thing at the library called the Civic Lab. So what would you call it if it isn't a program? What should we call this?
I think it's more of a mobile display than anything.
Okay.
Yeah.
That sounds good. So let's talk about it. What exactly will be, what is the Civic Lab?
The Civic Lab is a corner of the library where we've got some boxes set up that have clipboards and different things attached. And what people can find there is nonpartisan information about an issue.
Okay.
So there's a few things that are almost always in our Civic Lab.
Mm-hmm.
There's a sheet with things to read, watch, or listen, podcasts, documentaries, books, things to look at if you want to know more.
Okay.
And then there's a sheet of fast facts. What are the basics of what you need to know to understand this issue? And then we usually have an actual display of things that people can take and check out to learn more. Mm-hmm. And some bookmarks and things that advertise our databases, because those are great places to go for information about a topic.
Sure, the massive amount of online resources we have.
Yes.
So you walk into the library, and there's a corner of the library in which you can go find out information about whatever is a current topic.
Absolutely.
That's it. That's what it is. So it's always there.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
No specific time, and you can wander in, take a look at your leisure, and take what information you may need, and there you go.
Absolutely.
Great ideas. A Civic Lab.
Yeah.
So now let's talk about what kind of things we'll talk about. What kind of things would we want to know about from a Civic Lab? For example, what's our first topic?
Yeah, so we've had a soft opening already.
Okay.
Our first Civic Lab topic was refugees and immigration in general, because there is a lot of confusion as to what is the difference between a refugee, an immigrant, undocumented person, a stateless person. There's tons of terms floating out there in the news, and people may or may not know what they mean.
Sure.
And we had some great programming going on at the same time that kind of tied in with those issues. So that was our first Civic Lab. We got a tremendous response from the community. There's usually also, I didn't mention, a whiteboard with a question posed to the community, and people can leave whatever thoughts on that issue they have on a sticky note. And it's kind of just a low-key community conversation that goes on throughout the month. So we've done one Civic Lab on refugees and also one on poverty that tied in with the Walk Through Poverty documentary that was being shown at the library.
Sure. Okay.
And currently we've just put out what we're calling the Final Frontier, but it is all about who can own space and what laws apply in space and what kinds of things do we need to think about as more and more companies are looking at doing business in space. There's all kinds of things to think about, and that was a great topic because there are some Civic Lab topics where people sort of know maybe what they already think about a topic.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of space-related topics, people don't even really know what to ask.
Sure.
I mean, who knows a whole lot about space law?
Sure.
Not very many people in the world. So it was a great...
I didn't even know space law was a thing.
I really didn't either until I started researching, but there's an actual branch of law. There are space lawyers.
Oh,
yeah.
That's awesome.
It's a thing.
That is awesome. So the Civic Lab, let's clarify on which library we're at.
Good plan. So the Civic Lab is currently at North Spokane.
Yes, North Spokane Library, 44 East Hawthorne.
Correct. And it's over in our local section, that corner kind of next to the conference room.
Sure. Okay, so North Spokane Library, and it's there all the time.
It's there all the time.
And
typically topics change month to month.
Okay, great. And it's just called the Civic Labs. So where did this idea come from?
Skokie Public Library did a Civic Lab, and it, as far as I know, it was their own creation.
Okay.
They had a lot of people who were really interested in hot button topics going on in the news, but weren't sure where to get good information. And then also Skokie really looked at how do we facilitate good public conversation. So they got their teens really involved and started having events where teens would come and learn very basic information, and then have a conversation about it. They started doing programs. And then they set up a Civic Lab. Theirs is staffed, ours is not. And they had a person who would stand directly in their foyer and would talk to people about the things that were in the Civic Lab and answer their questions and look up information for them.
Interesting.
And I thought that was a really a great idea, because so many people in, I think, every community are looking at how much our information is changing, where we get our news, who we trust to get our news from, and also so much polarization between generations, between political parties. Sometimes people feel like they fall in between and don't really know where to go to just get the basics. So I thought that would be something our community would really value. So I looked at doing an unstaffed Civic Lab where it's really kind of an extension of the reference desk, where you can go get information, but you don't necessarily have to interact with another person. If you're feeling really uncomfortable about a topic, you can grab your information, and you can head out.
Can just peruse on your own.
Yes, and of course the staff is always right there if you want
if you do
more
have
guidance.
additional questions. That's great.
Yeah.
So, Dana, Corinne said that we hear in every community that more communities want to know this information. So, why the Civic Lab at our libraries?
Well, it's actually part of a larger focus that we're narrowing in on this coming strategic planning cycle. The library goes out into the community and listens to what people are thinking and what they think would make a wonderful community. And then we think about how the library can help. So we recently did a round of these conversations, and across communities, we go out all over in all our 11 communities that we serve, from the West Plains out to the Valley and up to Deer Park. We heard comments along the lines of, we don't really understand how our government is working, and we don't understand or have confidence that we have a voice in that. And in that climate, also, the controversial issues that come up are really polarized, as Corinne said, and our Thanksgiving dinner tables are becoming battlegrounds. And a better community that we would want to live in would be a place where we could have conversations civilly and also understand how our civic society is structured and works. So Corinne's Civic Lab is one part of our response to that need that we heard in the community.
That's great.
I think that's true of our local governments as well as kind of a larger nationwide picture.
Sure.
And some of Dana's projects have got a really good handle on helping people get to the person that they need to solve whatever their problem is.
Government is confusing, as you mentioned, with the immigrants and all the different terminologies. And is there a difference? And what are they talking about? And you're trying to follow the news, and there's so many different things going.
We very frequently have lists of terms to know at the very beginning of our fast fact sheet, because often when you are reading about an issue, it is going to be very confusing, particularly when people misuse terms.
Yes.
Yeah, there's quite a few different issues where I think people use terms as synonyms when they're not, and it muddies the waters a lot.
Absolutely. So that's great. So this is our step on trying to help inform people about their own government, which is great. And it's from national level down to local level. Getting through our own government sometimes is difficult. People, for lack of a better understanding, sometimes just not even sure where they live. You know, if you live in the valley,
very much
but you read, say, the Spokesman every day, and they talk about the mayor, but that's not your mayor. You know, so that's just one example. And I'm not picking on anybody.
It's so easy to get confused.
Absolutely.
It really is.
The city lines and the little towns and the little governments and everything's
And we've got
different.
quite a few people who live kind of on the border between two communities. And sometimes they think they're within the border of one, but they're
and
the
you're
other.
in a different, And so if you have an issue and you need to talk to an elected official, where am I going? Am I going to the right place? Who do I talk to when I get there? Where are they? All those questions. So that's great. I love it that the library has stepped into, we're down the middle of the road trying to give out the most current and best information without, any bias and or any of the messing around that goes on Google, because, whatever you Google, the thing that pops up at top is whoever ever paid the most, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and we have some great topics coming up at the Civic Lab.
We do.
And what we're going to do is we're going to talk about those topics and maybe some potential upcoming topics. But before we get to that, I believe it's time for a quick break, and we'll be right back after this on Library Out Loud.
Welcome to Tom Sawyer Country Coffee.
Tom Sawyer Country Coffee only roasts the finest organic coffee for our signature blends. Enjoy a cup at our coffee shop and local businesses and organizations across the region.
I'm Tom Sawyer, and we choose the Pacific Northwest.
What? You haven't been to the library lately? Stop in today and see that the library is more than books. Spokane County Library District facilities feature on-site technology, including Wi-Fi, computers, and printers, as well as free use of meeting rooms. The Library District offers events and programs for all ages, from story times to career development and employer classes to Social Security workshops. Our staff is well trained and happy to help. Find out more about your library at scld.org.
I'm Jade Becker, and I'm a senior at Chewilla High School. I'm at STCU's Money Live event. In this scenario that we played today, I was a realtor. My spouse was a city worker. We had an 11-month-old child, and there was a lot of spending for that child, like diapers and formula, and had to buy toys and clothing. I'm very glad that I had this experience. It was super helpful. You need this to get far and ahead in life. I'm Jade Becker, and STCU is here for good.
And welcome back to Library Out Loud. I'm Jane Baker with Spokane County Library District. Joining me are librarians Corinne Wilson and Dana Menino. I was worried that I was going to mess up your last name, and I haven't yet, so yay.
Gold stuff.
We're talking about the Civic Lab, which is an ongoing display up at the North Spokane Library, and it's not... It's open. Anytime you can wander in, take a look, read, leave a comment, ask questions, that kind of stuff. If you want, you can do it on your own at any time. So
we also really encourage people, if there's a topic that they really would love the Civic Lab to cover, leave a note with a staff member. We'd love to hear about it.
Absolutely. So if you want to know more about something, that would be the place to do it, to start a conversation. So it's kind of like a conversation going on that's not online, which is nice. And a little different, and you can connect in person, so that's exciting. And right now we have the Final Frontier. You said the Final Frontier just went up.
Yes,
okay.
yes. So the Final Frontier will be up throughout June.
Okay.
And then keeping in line with our themes of A Universe of Stories, which is our summer reading theme.
Yes.
We're all about outer space this summer.
We are.
We'll be talking about the Space Force that has been in the news so often next month in July. And then in August, we switch gears and we're going to talk about, I think, thoughts and beliefs. Is that what we ended up calling it?
Facts, thoughts, and beliefs in science.
Facts, thoughts, and beliefs in science. So really asking questions of what science do you trust? How do we look at scientific findings and understand what they mean for us in a responsible way. Sometimes we've got people who say, well, I reject all of these scientific conclusions. I think that my experience has been much different. And then we've got people who believe anything that a scientific study has said is true. And there are a lot of tools that you can use when you're looking at science to responsibly understand what it's telling you and what that means for your everyday life.
Wow, that's a great topic.
It's
Yeah.
covers quite a bit.
I bet.
Then for September, we're going to be looking at what and how we eat, which is also something that's very frequently in the news. Everything from should I be worried about whether or not my food is organic, how socially responsible are meal delivery services, how do I work with my local farmers, how do I understand my food labels to make sure that I'm healthy. There's so many things to consider around eating healthily and responsibly that we're going to try and cover at least in the month of
That's a big
September.
one. You might need more than a month on that one.
Yeah, there's always quite a bit of
Yeah.
of things to digest with just 1 month for a topic.
Funny pun.
Yes, right.
That's great. So those are through September,
Yeah.
but you've got things planned beyond September.
I do.
Can you give us a couple of previews
All right,
of those?
So sneak peek. In October, we'll be talking about voting rights.
Oh.
Who has the right to vote?
Sure.
How do you be sure that you're registered to vote? All of those sorts of concerns around voting.
That'd be great, just
And
ahead
that's-
of November.
Just ahead of
Yeah.
November, everybody should be nice and prepared.
And that's in conjunction with our celebration of Voting Registration Day,
Yes.
where we will have tables
I'm
at
so
all of
glad you
our
brought that
library.
up.
We also help man a table at the bus plaza.
Yes, down at STA,
At
yeah.
STA's bus plaza to help. We do a joint voter registration and library card registration drive.
Yes.
And these are all wonderful pieces because from the various earliest days of public libraries in America, they have been linked with making democracy work well. The idea that democracy only works if you have an educated public, and that libraries have a role to play in that. So we're excited to be participating in that holiday again in that way, and the Civic Lab ties in so nicely with it.
Perfectly. Yeah. So,
Absolutely.
What was next coming up in November? Do you have November?
I do have November.
All
So
right.
in November at North Spokane, we'll be having an exhibit that's all around Hanford, which is, it's true all the way down in Tri-City, so about 3 hours away. But we do have, there are quite a few issues surrounding Hanford that really affect Washington State.
Yes.
And we'll have a widespread display of things borrowed from the Hanford Project back during World War II when they were developing the first atom bomb. And so tying in with that, the Civic Lab is going to cover nuclear waste. We have more nuclear waste stored in Washington State than anywhere else in the nation.
Oh, I didn't know that.
A lot of people don't.
Wow.
And we'll be talking about what goes into storing and housing that that nuclear waste. How does all of that work? How do we responsibly deal with those sorts of issues? I mean, it's not easy to contain nuclear waste. So
No.
we'll be looking at how that works.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. That's in November.
That's in November.
About Hanford.
And then I wasn't sure what to do for December, and my coworker Julianne had a fabulous idea. During December, we'll be talking about managing stress and depression and issues of suicide and attempted suicide in our community. Often those holiday months are really the hardest if you struggle with depression or loss of family members. All kinds of really hard issues become harder when everyone else is celebrating family and fun around you. So we'll be looking at different resources we have in our community and how our community is handling those issues.
That's
as a
fabulous
whole.
and very timely. Great idea.
Yeah, it should be good.
Yeah.
And then last but not least, in January, we'll be talking about the Electoral College.
Oh, boy.
And how does the Electoral College work?
How does that work?
Is it in need of reform? Does it work the same way? Does it work as effectively as it did when it was created? We'll be looking at all all things Electoral College in January.
Wow, great topics. And the fact that you have a whole month that you can wander in and out and take a look at that information.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and takeaways as well if you find something there.
Grab some sheets
handouts.
and you can explore them at home.
Oh, that's great. And then we're going to also do some more local elected officials. Dana, tell me more about that.
Well, as we said before, the Civic Lab is part of a larger initiative to help provide our community with the information they need navigating their government and having conversations civilly. So we have two things coming up at the Spokane Valley Library in the fall that speak to that directly. The first will be a poster display, and that directly answers the complaint about not knowing who does what in their government. It was really interesting. We heard this in conversations both from seniors who said, kids these days, they don't understand how the government work. And then we heard it from working professionals who are from a different generation who were saying, I don't feel that my city council is responsive. I don't know how they're making the decisions that they're making in my rapidly changing community. That was something we got a lot. All communities in the Spokane area are experiencing population growth right now that changes things, and the elected officials who make the decisions to accommodate those changes are more pertinent now than they used to be.
Yeah.
You want to know who they are. So we're starting out with a passive poster display. We'll have several large posters up that help people understand what decisions get made at which levels of government, how they impact you, and where your voice is, because at each level of government, there's a way for the public to participate, whether that's commenting on a federal regulation that has been proposed or putting together a ballot initiative to try and get a law on the books through direct democratic participation.
Oh, that's fabulous. And you said passive display again, so you can go in and look at this information. You don't have to worry about having to express opinions that might be different than somebody else's or an argument or anything. It's just passive. You can go in and get what information and take what you need, right?
And we hope to have, we will have writing utensils and postcards, and then also email addresses so that you can contact your elected representatives and let them know what you're thinking about.
Very nice. Very nice. That's a great idea. And that's at Spokane Valley.
Yes.
Okay, so we're hitting both the north side and the valley with this information. And you mentioned National Voter Registration Day. That, by the way, is Tuesday, September 4th. So we'll remind you about that before summer's over, right? So what other topics are you thinking about or ideas, or what's your gut reaction on how this is all going since you've gotten it started?
I have been very pleased with the response from our community, just from our kind of soft opening when we set the Civic Lab out. It had kind of minimal signage, and it was set out at the same time an exhibit was. I think a lot of people thought it was part of that exhibit. And all I really had to measure was how many people took factual information sheets and how many books checked out. And for the first Civic Lab, I think well over 150 books flew off the shelf throughout the month. We nearly ran out. And we got quite a few sticky notes as well. We got over 20 of those, so I know that people are thinking deeply about these topics. And quite a few information sheets disappeared. And more, I think, as the months have gone by and people have figured out, these really are here for me to take. I don't have to worry about taking the last one or anything like that. I can walk away with these. So I've been very pleased, and I'm hoping that we get even more feedback as to things people are wondering about in their community.
Great. That's great. I hope that people will start getting the hang of, you can go in here and see something new every month and leave your opinion if you'd like, or take some information if you'd like. Oh, that's great. Great work. Great work you guys are doing. It's just a thrill to be knowing I'm part of an organization that helps to share this information in the public because it's super important right now. And you guys do excellent jobs. So thank you. Thank you for doing that. Thank you for being here. Again, North Spokane Civic Lab, and then watch for more things at Spokane Valley towards the fall, correct?
Correct.
And so say if you have an idea, and you can list it there at North Spokane on the sticky notes. But what about in Valley? What if you're in the Valley and you have an idea for something Civic Lab-ish to do? Just talk to a staff member, or?
Yep, we're always welcome to, open for programming suggestions. There's a suggestion box if you prefer to do it anonymously. You're welcome to talk to one of us in person. And we really do take these seriously, just as we did when we went out in the community and we heard about what people were interested in. We do want to respond to that. Do we have time to discuss the short course on neighborhood planning that we're going to be sponsoring?
Ooh, we're running short, but mention it real fast.
We are bringing in the Washington State Department of Commerce and the Washington Planning Association's course on how changes are made in your neighborhood, decisions related to that. It's an urban planning course available for citizens, customized for the kinds of questions we heard, like, why isn't there a stop sign in my neighborhood?
Wow. And will that be at Valley?
That will be at the Valley coming the first week of October.
First week of October. I know people will be interested in that.
Absolutely.
Attending a recent city council meeting, I know that will be a popular one. So
We're
good
hoping.
job with that. A great job listening to the community and bringing the programs that they are wanting. So thank you both for being here today. And we'll maybe have you back on the fall to talk more about this. Okay. All right. And for Library Out Loud, I'm Jane Baker, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for watching. Library Out Loud is produced in Spokane, Washington by SpokaneTalksMedia.com, which is solely responsible for its content. Library Out Loud is sponsored by our friends at the Spokane County Library District and STCU. Ask Jane a question, recommend a guest, or hear this program again on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or SpokaneTalksMedia.com.